We tried to encourage him to have care about 2 years ago, but he totally refused.
Dad's health was deteriorating, but his mental capacity was quite good. Perhaps at that time I should have identified that Mum's mental capacity was deteriorating.
I have a sister who has had paranoid schizophrenia for very nearly 50 years.
It was getting more and more difficult for me because I got a full-time job and family and other commitments.
But my priority at the time, this was between June and October of last year, 2010, my priority was my father's health. That deteriorated with cancer, and sadly Dad passed away in October of 2010.
A few years ago, she was in one place of care and that was no longer suitable. She had a very good friend and they wanted to set up home together, which they did. He had his own problems, mental health problems and alcohol problems, and so did my sister. We didn't think it'd last more than a few weeks, but you need to respect, family's wishes. And when you have problems, it doesn't make you unentitled to choices. So we respected their choices and they set up together, and it went pretty well for a while. But gradually got more difficult. My sister's paranoia, the alcohol, and living together was fairly chaotic.
But I ended up having to sort of go and see him about 3 or 4 times every day. Then just before last Christmas, he was taken ill, right? And I had to call the ambulance and he went to hospital. When he came out of hospital, he needed almost full-time care.
That left me with Mum. It was then that I really appreciated what he'd been doing for Mother with her dementia, a bit of Alzheimer's and so forth. So she became my prime responsibility. I tried to manage it personally. I'm an only child, no brothers and sisters, and that placed a great degree of responsibility on me.
The doctor had suggested that we might like to have carers, and we started off with Way Ahead and got on brilliantly. First of all, we had carers for 5 times a day, and now, well, after 6 weeks, we got it back to twice a day.
And the doctor gave her a test to identify the level of memory loss. They were very concerned. They termed Mum in November last year as being highly vulnerable. They also came and did a occupational therapy assessment, and they facilitated putting in stair bars, additional bits and pieces to make her safety a lot more conducive to everybody.
My sister had a care worker through the mental health system, and that care worker eventually put in place and said we'll put in some care to enable them to keep together. I was going over there quite regularly and my other sister to support them. This made an enormous difference to have somebody coming in of a morning and of an evening into their home just to see what was going on, to check medication where possible, and sometimes just to burst the bubble when things were getting very tense. Because with my sister's mental health problems, one moment her partner was just the best thing since sliced bread, the only person in the world who understood her. The next moment, and literally almost the next moment, he was the one who was trying to kill her, murder her, and she'd be in a terrible state.
I couldn't cope with I wasn't looking after him properly. I didn't feel that I was committing enough time to him, and that anxiety was obviously, he picked up on that anxiety, so that sort of didn't help matters. But once he has accepted having carers, And he knew that they were going to come a certain time, they were going to get him up, they were going to give him his lunch, or they were going to put him to bed, whatever they, the time of the day was. He grew to rely on them and look forward to seeing them, its company and its security for him, the whole way around, really.
She didn't want these people in putting bars on stairs, which she's never had stairs before. She didn't want smoke alarm testers. Why are these people coming into my house? Very resistant. That was a very difficult time. And then ultimately the decision was made to give her some outside agency care, which is where the way ahead people come in.
And I would sometimes, not exactly bump into, but I'd be over there. Generally it would be the sort of tea time when one of the warehead care staff would come in. So over the few years I met quite a number of them and also had phone calls. What was really important was I felt they really cared about my sister. Now that might sound strange really, because that's what they were there to do. But my sister is not an easy person. She can be sweet, she can be delightful, she can smile and say some very appreciative things. But she can also say, what the hell are you doing here? Get out, I don't like you, and all those things.
And life has completely changed for me, and also he was a lot happier because he knew somebody would come and help him get up in the morning, and it was a much more sort of secure situation for him. And he didn't want to go into a home. He flatly refused.
As a carer of a dependent, your whole life changes dramatically. If you want to go on holiday, if you want to go anywhere, you have to, and rightly so, consider the person you're caring for.
They also were understanding of her partner, and that was important. They didn't just focus, their job was to focus on Sheila, and that was right, but if they had ignored her partner when he was anxious or distressed, or sometimes she might have been fast asleep and there was nothing it could do, but they would not just go straight out of the door. If David needed to talk for a little bit, to be reassured, to help, they would give him that bit of time. That was vital because it meant that he had the resources to care for Sheila when she'd kind of wake up. And I think that's kind of very important in caring for people. You've got to care for the whole family.
He wanted, firstly he didn't want to go into a home. He wanted to increase his mobility a little bit. He wanted to be more as independent as he possibly could. And way ahead helped to work towards those aims. But so we started off as I said, 5 visits a day, including one in the night. And now it's gone back to 2. And he's quite happy with that. He's a bit more independent. But he still has the reassurance that somebody's going to come and put him to bed and somebody's going to get him up in the morning.
So it was really important that we had people coming in, monitoring the situation, often diffusing the bubble if they were getting at one another, and it was a small little flat. Then having them come in just in a friendly way, sometimes ensuring my sister ate something, sometimes trying to help her with self-care, which was always kind of difficult. But in a way I think that's so to see, because now my sister is in a care home full-time. But she's taking self-care much better than she used to, and I think the girls from Way Ahead helped to start that and restore some self-esteem.
He didn't want to go into a home. He flatly refused.
The calmness with which staff came in and greeted her and were very patient and sensed the moods. That's kind of very important in caring for people. You've got to care for the whole family.
As a carer of a dependent, your whole life changes dramatically.